As the war rages on, there are deaths on both sides. For some, it's too much. For others, it's never enough. But where is the line between expediency and mercy? And once it's crossed, can you really come back? Sometimes both sides are right. On this week's The Walking Dead, Season 8, Episode 3, Monsters. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of The Walking Dead. So, of course, and as usual, lots of spoilers. Alright, well let's dive right into things this week. Overall, good episode. Lots of interesting stuff dealt with. But let's start things off with Morales. And look, I don't know about you guys, but I was sick of Morales about 30 seconds after he started talking. If that long. And boy, does he talk a lot. Blah, 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 blah. Really, just, I couldn't stand it. I mean, we learned a little bit about his journey. Never made it to Birmingham. Family died before he got there. And I guess at that point he lost his mind. Kind of understandable. Saviors found him, showed him that he could be something, saw a little spark of crazy in him and went, come on, we're the crazy group, join us. And that's where he has been. I guess he has heard of the Rick from Alexandria, and now that he's face to face, he understands that it's Rick. And they had some interesting little back and forths there. I mean, from a conceptual standpoint, yes. From an acting standpoint, no. Andrew Lincoln, man, can act circles around this guy. I think that's another thing, too, is you had Morales trying to tell his story and be angry and have that moment, and you just have Rick, Andrew Lincoln, just so much going on with his statements, and there's so much depth that you can see he's considering all these ideas. It's not just what Morales brings up. We're just two assholes that'll do anything to survive, but only difference is I'm the guy with the gun. It's like a cheap rip-off line from Army of Darkness. Good? Bad? I'm the guy with the gun. But that's Ash saying that. Who can pull that kind of line off? Morales, not quite so impressive. So, that was one thing. Just seeing the depth of what Andrew is able to bring to the table versus Morales here. I was tired of him. Very glad. I have to say, the best move that I have seen so far in just taking him out. And as Rick was talking, I was thinking, are you kind of delaying things here just to wait until Daryl pops up? And then sure enough, Daryl's just, blam, drops him and brings him right down. Not a thought, not a breath. Even Rick was like, hey, that was. And Daryl's like, yeah, doesn't matter. Let's go. So, yes. Very glad that he was dead. Perfect way to take him out. Like I said, I was annoyed with him really quickly. I'm glad they didn't drag it out. And having Daryl just take him out like that, like it was nothing. Perfect. Really. Great way to end with the character. Certainly removes any kind of future crossover idea. I guess we could see from Fear the Walking Dead if they wanted to do some Morales, what happened to his family a little time after that or something like that. But at this point, with him dead, who cares? But what that scene does illustrate, and is really something that is brought up throughout the rest of the episode, is that aspect of morality in the midst of battle. We talked about some of this last week, but this sort of continues the whole idea is, what is the difference between the two sides? And in some ways we've always seen the saviors as the psychotic killers and such that they are, after certainly what Negan did with Glenn, in front of Maggie, his pregnant wife, reason enough to hate them all. But that particular point is, one, that's interesting because when he brings that up to Morales and explains all the people that Morales knew that are dead, including Glenn, killed by Negan in front of his pregnant wife, bashing his head in, that doesn't affect Morales at all. And that's sort of where you start to see that sort of moral line is, where is it for each individual? Rick is playing with this idea because, of course, he killed Gracie's dad and then discovered Gracie. And then he runs into Morales, and he does have the question, if the roles were reversed, wouldn't you do the exact same thing? Now, of course, Rick, having the gun in his face, is certainly going to think about, no, I'd be more merciful. But in his current state of mind, he would be. He's realizing that just that blind killing, taking out the enemy, removes the humanity. And sometimes in war, yes, you need to do that. But then you have to live with the consequences afterwards. And so we have Rick weighing that idea of, no, maybe I would do something differently. And that's something that he sort of has to play with throughout, even as we get to the little end last scene where he's dealing with the last savior there, who comes out and holds up his hands, is like, okay, so I'll tell you what you want, and then we got a deal. Rick seeing that a man's word, that idea is that we can say something, we can move past, there is a place for the future that we can go to, that is important to hold on to. Interesting, in both of those, their answer was made by Daryl, who we all love, and we're never going to argue anything about Daryl's decision making. And I think that's probably was kind of a perfect foil for the other side of Rick, the two-sided argument you have, because, I mean, Daryl was kept a prisoner. He went through a whole lot of bad stuff, and he's had his own ups and downs with everything. So him being in the position right now of like, no, they're saviors, we take them out, and doesn't even think about it. It's all right, let's just move on. Those are perfectly illustrative of the two sides that everybody else is kind of dealing with also. Especially when we look at Jesus and Morgan, Tara, really kind of Jesus, more Jesus and Morgan this episode, where Jesus is bringing up the real question is, there is going to be a tomorrow. We're going to have to live with these people. We have to move to the area of peace. That, again, that constant question, where is the line? I think he brought it up, he explained it perfectly with Maggie at the end there, is yes, we can't let them go, but we can't execute them either. That's not who we are, that's not what we do. And again, this deals with that balance of expediency and mercy, because in mercy, yes, you were going to take prisoners, you're going to take care of them. It's often said that the quality of a society is determined by the treatment of their prisoners. How do they treat the worst there? How do they treat that side? Do you torture them? Do you tie them up? Do you treat them respectfully? Is there a plan for them to reintegrate into society afterwards? Or once they're a prisoner, they're always a prisoner? At which point, do you just kill them? And that's the expediency side of things. When you're in battle, that's an easy plan to make. If there's a bad guy, shoot the bad guy, no more bad guy. Binary, very simple and easy decision to make. When you get into it and you do have prisoners, that's where things, at what point do we cut the expediency of battle, taking out all of the enemy and thus removing the enemy? No more enemy, peace is there. Or is there a moral line that you have to draw? And I think Jesus really brings that up beautifully. Tara, of course, happy to take out anyone. And I love that the idea is, the previous idea they've had is, we're going to talk between Maggie and Rick. And Maggie's going to be more merciful and Rick isn't going to be. Where in many ways, if you ask that question of Rick right now in the midst of this episode, he would in fact be a lot more of the merciful. He might be the one to think about, yes, take the prisoner, hold off on the killing, maybe we don't need to go that far. Where Maggie, well, I don't really see exactly where Maggie is, but certainly not, maybe a bit more on the let's take them outside. But but Morgan, I think, is that perfect man in the middle there. Because Morgan has crossed that line and gone too far. Remember back in the whole clear days, Morgan was taking out everyone, clearing them. Then he made the cheesemaker, and now he's a little bit more peaceful. Then he went through his whole peaceful days. He stepped back, but he did that complete binary thing. It's like a former drug user that was a junkie, and then it's not that he can do it occasionally and recreationally. He's got to take it completely away, because if he dives back in, he may go too far. For Morgan in killing, it's kind of the same way. He was a perfect, beautiful, efficient killer. And he kind of lost his mind on that. And he was brought back, and he could see there is redemption, there is a chance, there is a way to come back. But Morgan also brings up that interesting point is, yes, but how often can you? How easy is that? And once you cross back over, is it too hard to come back after that? How many times can you cross that line and still be able to come back? For Morgan, it's a real binary decision. And the fight between Jesus, I love the fight. I love Jesus. Man, he is fast. It's awesome to see the two of them going back and forth. It kind of annoyed me of like, why is Morgan doing the big fight? This is going too far. Until the end, until he does that kind of like snap out of it moment of like, what happened? And that's where we really can see the effect of crossing that line back and forth, of going too far and having difficulty coming back. Because for Morgan, that was it. Once he had crossed the line, once the kid was killed and he crossed the line that he was going to kill and that he was going after the saviors, perfect binary. That's all he's going to do. He can't do both. Certainly not the same way that Jesus can, who can kill and yet still think about merciful. For Morgan, he can't straddle that line. He's either completely killing or not killing. And those are in fact two psychological differences. You could see when he was in that fight, he wasn't Morgan anymore. He was clear, if we're going to call him that. Not the same kind of peaceful Morgan that we had. So when that resolution for Morgan at the end is, I can't do this, I can't be here. He can't be part of the war. He can't straddle that line. It is either I am killing and taking out the enemy, or I'm a peaceful man living a peaceful life. But I can't do both. Now, one person who doesn't have a problem straddling that line, certainly on the basis of personal expediency and not any type of moral center, would be Gregory. Who arriving back at Hilltop, Enid's face was perfect. Just looking on down, the kind of like shock and perplexed and confusion he's here. I just thought was marvelous. And even her looking at Maggie as Maggie is kind of weighing things all back and forth. It's kind of like, are you really going to let him in? Gregory, just whiny, perfect. And willing to say anything to really get his way. Like I said, no expedience at all, going the mercy way. They had to go out, that he was trying to be heroic, that he was trying to do this. I love the call down to Cal. You know, what does Cal know? Cal sticks his head out. Hey, well, you know you can be delusional there, Cal. The whole pancake thing. And I mean, that was just awesome. We could just see how like water off a duck's back. You throw a problem at Gregory and he will just sneak and move his way around to the other side to try and get back out. And after the whole pleading and mercy and let me in and it's dangerous and things that and just how can you let someone out and that's not the type of person, and finally he gets Maggie to just sort of buckle to her own personal moral center and let him in. 2 seconds later, when the savior prisoner's out, there's Gregory right again. You can't let them in there, untrustworthy. It's such a perfect reversal for a self-centered character such as Gregory. At least Maggie got rid of him, but, we'll told him to go away for the moment. But he's not, he's nothing but trouble. I think it really was a mistake to have him there. Of course, Tara, not disagreeing with him. And this goes back to a little bit even that Morgan was saying. When he did kind of snap out of his bit of craziness and say, look, I'm not right. I know I'm not right. But that doesn't mean that I'm wrong. Which, of course, Tara's agreeing and seeing that in the same point here in Gregory. And that idea of, it is dangerous having these prisoners. They're known to be deceptive. I mean, yes, you need to be merciful in a sense. You can't just execute prisoners. Once you don't kill them in battle and you agree to take prisoners, then there is a whole bit of other responsibility. But it is going to take up time, resources. They got to keep them under guard. They got to be able to feed them. And there's all an assumption of how long is this battle going to go on. And once it is done, what is that future plan for peace? Do you let them go? Do you disarm them? Do you try and integrate them into the community? I mean, these are bigger questions that, of course, they're going to have to tackle, and they will be tackling. And I think a lot of it's going to be put on the weight of Jesus. Now, of course, we have Ezekiel and Carol and their little merry band doing some awesome ambushing. Ezekiel definitely there with the empowering, stirring speeches. Very flowery language. Always love to hear him speak. And a lot of ideas. And the thought of not one of us, we will not lose one of us. That's a good driving point, a good way to motivate everybody. And certainly the smiles and viewing, as unrealistic as it may seem from an outside world, that everything is going to be okay and each of our victories are going to lead to the next one. That is what you want to hear from as a soldier. That's what you want to hear from the leadership as they're down in the trenches with you. I love the ambushes. I love the back and forth. I loved all of their moves. Was just awesome and beautiful and great. Till, of course, the end. Which, when they did find out, after all their successes, they make the mistake, they jinxed it. Not one of us, not one of our number was lost. He almost can't believe it himself. And that is, of course, when it all goes down. Why? Because you didn't properly clear the area. So Carol said that you had to do, wandering out in the outdoors for too long, you got lazy. That's the problem with success sometimes. It can breed laziness. You get too used to success and everything working, and then at the last minute, you miss out on something important, like one of those Browning 50 caliber machine guns on the top of the barn right there. So, definitely they've lost a bunch of their number. Not sure how many. Carol is hopefully on her way to the barn to go and take those out, but yeah. I just hope Jerry's okay. As long as Jerry's fine, then everything will be fine. And of course, Aaron and Eric. Okay, well, at least did find out that Aaron is attacking the same place that Daryl and Rick were going on. I wasn't sure. Honestly, it wasn't super clear to me, especially because they were jumping to several different locations. I thought it was very easy that these were different places. But no, Aaron and his group show up at the bottom, draw everybody downstairs, and that was why Rick and Daryl weren't running into so many people on the upstairs. So that makes a lot more sense. I feel much better knowing all of that. Felt certainly much more of a coordinated attack. However, it's sad to see Eric go. It was nice. He was in battle. It was the two of them, the lovers. They're fighting together on either side. And it certainly gave some nice moments for Ross Marquardt, for Aaron, to do some nice little acting moments, some big chops going on with him. Really something to dive into there, acting-wise. The only thing was, it was a little cheesy as they just drawn him out to sort of like behind the building to the old tree. Didn't even really gunfire at that point. Just lay him down. It'll be okay. Went through. It was a through and through. It should be fine. Didn't think about medics. Anybody? They don't have. It just seems like a lack of preparation. They got a lot of bullets, but they've got no bandages. Anyway, again, while I like them together, they're very cute together. There were some great little moments there, like I said, for Aaron to sort of chew into. It just seemed cheesy bringing him out back and just, okay, now you wait and I'm going to go. And then after the whole battle is over, then he comes back, then Aaron comes back to check on him. I would have thought that would have been something sooner. And of course, once he's gone, pardon me, once he is gone and the gun's laying there, you knew he had turned. It was a great shot of just seeing this form wandering off. We didn't confirm it. I'm assuming from the jacket and everything that it was Eric, certainly by Aaron's reaction. And I like his buddy saying it's not him. It's true. Eric's dead. This is just a zombie form in his body, looking like him. Which is disturbing if you're, the husband. But anyway, it was sad to see him go. It didn't surprise me from how much he was bleeding and just leaving him back at the tree. I don't know. That seemed like an opposition to just go drop off the body and then be like, all right, I'm going to go rack around to the front where all the gunfire's going on. You'll be safe back here. Does get Gracie. which is sort of a continuing of life type of thing. One person dies, a new life comes in. Full circle of life bit going on right there. So I thought that was cool and appropriate. All right, just a couple of small things. One, the red-headed whistling savior. Yeah, really surprised Morgan didn't shoot him. Especially since it was his group that ran away and Morgan did take the shot. I would have thought that he at least would have made sure to shoot that guy. Because he was annoying, was definitely with the group where the kid got shot there, which is why I recognize the whole armor thing. And let me even saying, that's wrong. Yeah, that's wrong, murderous guy. Shut up. Anyway, and I did love the whole rolling walker scene right there, of the walkers up on the hill hitting and then rolling down and getting back up. Haven't seen that. Totally makes sense of the way they would get down the hill. Anyway, visually interesting, a new thing, and I thought that was sort of nicely done, especially with those long rows of tied up prisoners. That's just like lunch on a string. I thought it was interesting Morales calling Rick monster, but again, who is the monster depending on your point of view? We do have to remember the Alexandrians did go and wipe out that first outpost of saviors in the middle of the night and just execute everybody. That was kind of their first introduction. So, you know, again, monsters depends on the side that you're on, I suppose. All right, and the guns, of course, are not where they were supposed to be. They were moved the day before. So, again, question being, is Dwight still trustworthy? Did he know that they were moved, or was this something that Negan did behind his back, maybe keeping a few things close to his vest? Not necessarily, maybe suspicious of Dwight, or maybe simply not trusting everybody and wanting to have some little backup. Maybe feeling perhaps that somebody might be a traitor, just not knowing exactly who that is. So yeah, a lot of big moral questions here, and I like the fact that they're not really answered. Because again, this is one of those circumstances, I think, where both sides can be right. There is something about taking out the enemy and being done with it. Especially when many of the enemy have shown to be lying, deceptive, willing to say and do anything and then turn around and stab you in the back. On the other hand, there does have to be a tomorrow. And if you overstep that line, I mean, even from a personal standpoint, you have the community and the personal standpoint. From the community standpoint, you know, are you going to have to kill everybody? And at some point, you may have to reintegrate who used to be an enemy into your society. And if you go too far, they may be resentful of that. They may not be trustworthy. They may not trust you. And thus, you have a deceptive base for that relationship. And then there is the personal side of, once you start killing and crossing that line, can you step yourself back, or do you just fall further and further into the darkness? Everybody can come back, but how often can you come back? I think that's sort of the bigger question. So I like the fact that they're bringing up these ideas, and I like the fact more is they're not wrapping up a simple moralistic bow. They're keeping it gray, that there is kind of a legitimacy to both sides. And whatever you choose to do is simply what you choose to do, and not always just a morality statement or definition for your character. But I think that will just wrap things up for us. So, if you did enjoy this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Sharing is caring. Go ahead and share across many of your multimedia platforms. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. But if you have a thought, throw it down in the comment section below. It's quick, it's easy. We can share thoughts, continue this conversation going. Let me know what you guys think of this episode and where you think the line is between morality and expediency. Just a thought. If you are not a subscriber, please subscribe. It's quick, it's easy. You'll catch this review. We're doing Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Mr. Robot, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comes back in December. Lots of fun stuff. You won't want to miss any of it. You won't if you're a subscriber. Do so by clicking this button right here. And I'll go ahead and throw up our latest couple of reviews right here. You go ahead and check those out. All right, so that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.